Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
We'd like to start the classes with excavating that tusk. Locate each find with a laser and record its locations. We can't ever really avoid the painstaking task of getting down and picking the dirt off with brushes and picks, toothpicks.
Are there other colleges and universities that can offer an on-campus fieldwork course that features excavation of something like this tusk? I'm Elaine Chong. The recent discovery of a mammoth tusk at that campus in Elsah, Illinois, has Professor Andrew Martin very excited. He plans to use the on-campus discovery and its excavation as part of course this fall. Joining me to talk about it is Andrew Martin, an associate professor at Principia College in Elsah, Illinois. He teaches courses in art history, sociology, anthropology, and archaeology. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Hi, Elaine. Nice to be on your program.
Happy to have you. There is some in-real-life drama around the recent discovery of the mammoth tusk named Mike, and I believe that's short for Michael, not microphone. What's the story behind that name and the tusk's uncovering?
Well, we have a facilities department here with some dedicated workers who maintain the college campus. And Mike Towell, a great guy, discovered the tusk while excavating a borrow pit for soil to bolster some of the roads on campus. And he saw something white at around 12 feet deep and stopped, thankfully. We invited a geologist from the Illinois State Museum in Springfield, Dr. Melissa Pardee, to verify the find, and she identified it as a tusk, which made us all kind of excited. Okay. And we then asked the University of Illinois to help with determining how much the remains were in place below the tusk. And a couple of Doctors Helen Silverman and Brandon Richardson from the University of Illinois came down to conduct ground-penetrating radar. And we discovered something large below, so it indicates that there is something large under the ground.
Now, where were you when you got word that something had been found on campus?
Well, I was actually just back from my sabbatical. I was in France for the year. And so it was a big surprise and kind of started a whole new era here at the campus.
And how did it feel to get that news?
Well, we had a mammoth that was discovered on the campus in 1999, and it was a very well publicized find at that time, and there was an excavation of it that lasted over 12 years. So I was a little bit nervous, I must say, that this will take so long, but it's an amazing opportunity for the campus to really engage in experiential learning for the students, and exciting for the campus too.
As far as that time between discovery and confirmation of what it was, how long did that take?
It was a few weeks. We had to sort of get people back from vacation first and talk it over, and we determined that we really needed to verify it and also to do GPR, ground-penetrating radar, to find how much of a find it was.
And was there anything that needed to be done to protect that area, to keep people from, with healthy curiosity, from trying to get closer and digging with their fingers or other implements?
Right. Yeah. So, for some reason, mammoth tusks have become fairly valuable these days. So we did actually cordon off the site and cover it with a tarp to prevent erosion from the rain, since it's on a slope. I actually used a coracle boat that my students reconstructed in my Native American cultures class to cover the tusk below the tarp, so condensation would not drip on the tusk from the tarp.
So your students were really using what they were learning in the real world.
Right, yeah. So we're a small liberal arts college here, and have very small classes. So we're able to do experiential and immersive activities quite well. I'm actually teaching a class on Native American cultures in half an hour. So a large part of that class is learning vital crafts of historic Native Americans to understand them better, like reconstructing houses or boats.
So Principia College is about 40 miles north of St. Louis, and it's right along the Mississippi River. What is the geology like on campus and nearby?
Well, we're right at the top of the bluffs along the Great River Road from Alton to Grafton, and they're about 200 feet high. And I really didn't realize this until I got studying into the geology of mammoths and mastodons, but it was the ground level until the glaciers in the north started melting at the end of the Ice Age, and it caused an enormous torrent up to about 11 miles wide and 200 feet deep during the summers that carved the bluffs along the Great River Road and the Missouri River to the south. And it created these verdant banks that attracted the mammoths and mastodons during the spring and summer. But during the winter, the river would have dried up and the glaciers would have refrozen and the area would have reverted to tundra, which would have produced actually a lot of dust, a lot of sediment that the river left, which would have been whipped up into dust storms that covered the bluffs in about 50 feet of deep of loess, which is sort of dust. It may have been this dust that killed the mammoths who'd wandered into what was effectively a trap. And so when we excavate this fall, we'll hopefully begin to know what actually happened.
And how many years ago are we talking about?
Well, the previous mammoth that was discovered here was fairly intact, so we think that it was choked to death by these dust storms. And it was dated, I think, 17,000 years ago, so about 15,000 BC.
Now, this sort of digging on campus isn't unusual, which is something that you've alluded to. And this is just the latest discovery of ancient animal remains, because back in 1999, Benny preceded Mike.
Right.
And I believe that it was Benny that was part of your getting to Principia College about 8.5 years ago. What is the connection between the 99 discovery of that mammoth and your landing in Elsah, Illinois?
Well, funny you should ask, because, archaeology hadn't really been of much interest here until Benny was excavated around 2002, I think it was, for then 12 years. And I actually came for my interview on pretty much the last day when Benny was reconstructed in the Science Center. And I helped build that reconstruction of it. So I like to think that Janice Treewergy, who was in charge of the excavation, sort of handed me the baton at my interview.
We're speaking with Andrew Martin, who's associate professor at Principia College in Elsah, Illinois. We're discussing the recent discovery of a mammoth tusk on campus. Now, an article in the Alton Telegraph describes the recent ancient mammoth tusk discovery as mammoth or mastodon. Why is that or in there?
Well, we only have part of the tusk visible on the surface. we'd like to start the classes with excavating that tusk. So if we excavate the tusk and it turns out that it's curved and goes back down into the earth, it's a mammoth. But if it ends with just a gentle curve, it's probably a mastodon. And so we'll know better what it was when we start excavating.
Mm-hmm. And what does a mastodon look like? For example, how big would a mastodon have been?
Right, well, not much bigger than an elephant. A mammoth is slightly larger than an elephant, maybe 10 to 12 feet high, with a lot more hair, so they're much hairier. A mastodon would have had shorter hair, shorter, straighter tusks, not straight tusks, but straighter.
Mm-hmm. And how long ago was it that mastodons would have roamed the area?
So they roamed during the ice ages, but also after the ice age, when people actually they coincided with the first Native Americans that came into the country, and they think that their demise was a combination of climate change, became too warm, and human hunting. So it was possibly one or the other or both. About 10,000 BC.
Mm-hmm. And if it is in fact confirmed that what you have found is the beginnings of mastodon remains, would confirming that add something particularly useful or just really interesting to what we now know about animals that roamed this region?
Well, there are many mammoths and mastodons found actually in Illinois, but not very many that are intact, so buried fairly intact. So if it is intact or fairly intact, it may add to the knowledge that we have of those creatures. But also it'd be interesting to know what happened to them in this particular area, why they were attracted to this, to the bluffs along this river, and there are many unanswered questions that scientists have about mammoths and mastodons that we could try and address.
Mm-hmm. Now, what Mike Towell uncovered of that ancient tusk is just a small part of what's left to be unearthed. As far as you know, are there other colleges and universities that can offer an on-campus fieldwork course that features excavation of something like this tusk?
Well, I don't know of any. It's a wonderful opportunity. Fortunately, also we have the skills and the equipment and the knowledge of excavating one already. So the students can really jump right in and learn great skills of recording and conservation analysis, use of scientific instruments. Last time they published and gave conference papers too.
Once excavated, do you know what will happen to what you uncover? So, for example, will it be put back together and put on display like Benny, the previous find, which was completed back in 2014?
Yes, that would be a wonderful outcome. We have a display of it in the bottom floor of our science center of the Benny, and if we have a mastodon, we could display that beside it, or a mammoth. There's plenty of room, so that would be a nice outcome, yes.
Mm-hmm. And how excited are you about this find and using it to teach students?
Yes, well, I've taught archaeology for 9 years now at the college, and we've excavated a bit of the previous settlement, a European settlement that was here, and part of a very it was a limited settlement from Native American historic times, but we've never really discovered something quite as popular as a mammoth. So this is something that many students will want to excavate. And I'm excited that they're excited in archaeology because of it.
And to the point about students, do you foresee this discovery and the opportunity for students to be this close to excavation as a point of attraction for other young people who are interested in archaeology?
Yes, it's kind of a tragedy that well, when I was growing up, I watched programs on archaeology all the time, but it wasn't really an option not to, because in England there were only 4 channels and it was very popular. But today people can watch what they want on Netflix, so there isn't much recognition of what archaeology is or interest in it. So this is an opportunity, I think, to get that exciting sense of discovery across to the students.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned experiential learning with your class. Are there new ways that archaeology is done that you'd like to try, or are the methods of excavation largely the same as they have been for many decades?
Well, that's kind of the thing with archaeology. There isn't really an easy way of going about it. So archaeology really has been the same as it has been for a couple of 100 years. We have a lot more scientific recording instruments. We actually have a brand new total station here, which can locate each find with a laser and record its location. So that makes it a lot easier. But we can't ever really avoid the painstaking task of getting down and picking the dirt off with brushes and picks, toothpicks. And so that will remain probably the same unless we find some sort of elaborate tool to do it for us.
Mm-hmm. Now, you earned your PhD in archaeology at Cambridge University in England, where you specifically compared the Native American mound builders in this region, where we are now, and the Stonehenge culture of Neolithic Britain. And you were drawn to this area, I understand, specifically because you're fascinated by the history and the Native Americans who lived here. What do you find so compelling about this area?
Well, it was in the Hopewell period, which existed around 2,000 years ago. One of the first Pan-American cultures. It developed because of the prodigious growth of natural foods and how it attracted many animals to the area, because of the rivers and the convergence of the rivers, the silt that was left by them from flooding, and because of that, people were able to feed themselves much more easily and develop religious plazas and ceremonies and burial mounds that really were some of the first in the United States. And it developed into quite a thriving, sophisticated culture at the same sort of socio-economic level as the Stonehenge culture. And they have many similarities. I was kind of curious whether we could understand them here by applying some techniques that are used in Britain. And it kind of opened up for me the culture and their religious ideas and ideology.
Mm-hmm. Did the recent discovery of this ancient mammoth tusk set your scholarly senses a tingle in a way that's particular to your interests as a professor working with students?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a fascinating period. I think we're learning more and more about the late Pleistocene, the Paleolithic period, and how sophisticated that period was. Even that we've kind of relegated to the Stone Age or basic skills, but we're learning more and more that the people at that period were much more sophisticated and And so being, of course, a mammoth, it wouldn't necessarily coincide with that period, but it may, and that might be an exciting discovery. But even if it didn't, I think the geology is fascinating, and also understanding how life was lived by the animals or people on the campus is something that the students kind of get excited about.
Mm-hmm. Andrew Martin is an associate professor at Principia College in Elsah, Illinois. He teaches courses in art history, sociology, anthropology, and archaeology. He spoke with us about the recent discovery of Mike, an ancient mammoth tusk, and how unearthing it will be incorporated into field work this fall that he will be leading. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Elaine.
Today's episode was produced by Alex Hoyer, with audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr. Our production intern is Avery Rogers. Our executive producer is Alex.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.